You'll all be aware that this is usually the closing operator panel, but we're rebranding it this year for a very good reason. Constant 8, I think you all know, have been both the longest and the most prolific supporter of the KPMG's e-gaming summits. Right since the very first one in the Isle of Man in 2010, they have sponsored every summit report that we have produced since day dot. And it's important to say that, there are 250 of you in the room today, but an awful lot more use that summit report and get all of the information from it, people who aren't in the jurisdiction, people who aren't able to attend the event. And I've quoted this before, but Rob Wood at Entain said to me once, I'm never going to come to a summit, Micky. I haven't got time. I'm way too busy. But get the summit report to me as soon as you can, because I give it to my whole team. So thank you, Constant 8, for that. But thank you also for Leaders and Legends, because you started this at ICE, pre-pandemic, and we had a fantastic time right on the conference floor, doing a live panel, which was terrifying for me, but thank you anyway for asking me to moderate it, with some CEOs from right across the industry, including one who is with us today. So Shay, you were in the very inaugural one, so thanks so much for coming back. He was unable to join the virtual one that we did last year because he kind of had quite a lot going on in his life at that time. But this year I am joined by a stellar lineup, and I'm going to start, as diversity and inclusion champions should, with the woman. So Jo, if you'd like to introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Jo Whittaker from Betfred. I'm CEO and been in post just over a year now.
Thank you. Vaughan?
Hi, Vaughan Lewis from 888. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer, so responsible for M&A and strategy and corporate communications.
I'm Edo Haitin. I'm a Playtech Live CEO, managing Live for Playtech for the last 5-6 years.
Yeah, so my name is Shay Segev. I have quite a vast background and experience in this industry, from being 10 years COO of Playtech to being COO of GVC, CEO of Entain, and now CEO of DAZN, which I'm looking forward to speak with you about.
Just one or two minor roles there. So let's kick straight off, because we haven't got that long. The industry, and we've discussed this a little bit already today, is waiting with bated breath for the UK government to publish its review of the 2005 Gambling Act, and to see what impact that's going to have on the market. It seems almost certain that there will be more stringent regulations around responsible gambling, with player affordability front and centre. So whilst safe gaming clearly must always be the priority, some are raising concerns about over-regulation and whether it will make the markets unviable for smaller operators. So with the UK seen as a regulatory benchmark for others to follow, ripples of change to the Gambling Act are likely going to be felt far and wide. So my question to you all, and I'll start with you, Jo, if I may, what changes do you expect to see as a result of the UK government's review? What impact do you expect those changes to have on the market, and how are you preparing for them?
My first comment would be, we just need to know what's coming. It's just hanging over us. We just need to move on. As an industry, we're agile, we evolve. We've already heard some speakers talking today about what's expected, probably better informed than me, but possibly slot limits, stake limits on slots, affordability, the levy. I hope they take into account the retail, higher fixed costs that we have in the retail sector, ombudsman. Losing my trail of thought of what else there'll be. But as a business, how are we preparing? We started off by panic and analysing and looking at data, looking at impact to the P&L. We've kind of got past that now. We had a significant hit on retail when the FOBT changes came in. We've survived, we're fine. If you talk to Fred, these legislative changes come in cycles. They're always serious. He'll always quote the National Lottery coming in. He thought that'd be the end to the business. It hit us for a small amount of time, and then we recover. So for our business, we're watching. we will respond. I hope we're given time to implement the technology changes that will be required. I hope that we can consult on affordability, although I think we've been saying what we think for a long time, and BGC have been doing some great work there. So, yeah, it's just wait and see from our point of view.
Yeah, I think, we all know it's an incredibly complicated area, and listening to Adam and Anna's session there really highlights some of the dilemmas, right? There's sort of Adam's running through how do you make an amazing product for the individual, personalization, showing some must-drop jackpots, really exciting stuff for the player. I think most of us in here are probably, big gambling fans, really enjoy it. Certainly I have been for decades, and, really is one of my sort of main hobbies and main sources of enjoyment. Getting that line right as to where that tips over from real personalization, real enjoyment, real promotion of great sort of new products, great offers, into something that becomes exploitative is the really challenging bit that this new act or new piece of legislation or new standards is trying to address. I think, we, like Joe, really just want clarity about, what are the standards that we need to meet. Once operators have that clarity, we back ourselves really to provide great customer experience and great safety within those standards. I think we're at a point at the moment where, we as operators are not quite clear exactly what standards it is we're trying to meet. So I suppose our hope from this process is that we get that clarity. It may be some sort of reshaping, some sort of change in the structure of the industry that results from that, but that will then enable everyone to get back to focusing on delivering great products and experiences to customers, and really for us, building our brands, building that long-term relationship with our players, and that's where the real value of the business is. We want players to stay with us, to say, I play with 888, I play with William Hill because they've got a great range of products, they really look after us, they're not exploiting us, and we've got that long-term relationship where they keep coming back to us and keep playing with us. So I hope, there will be changes here. We are, I think, well planned for it. Once we've got some clarity, I guess that's what we'd be hoping for, is that real clarity that it allows us to move to the next stage.
And of course, the UK is also good. Edo, if you want to.
No, I will just maybe add, and first of all, I fully agree with what's being told here, but I'm coming maybe from the provider angle a bit. It's a bit different than the operator's angle, and obviously we are operating around the world in, I believe, almost any jurisdiction and any regulatory environment, and we've seen it all.
Yeah.
I do think that it's in the product to solve it. It's in the product to serve the right experience for the players in the way that the regulator sees that his players are now should play, or what's the economical situation that leads to that decision, that the players should, comply, and the companies that provide those services should comply, and we need to equip our clients, our operators, with those products to solve that. I would add on the flip side that, as a big provider, I definitely, I feel for the smaller ones, because, the rough of the bar, entry bar level to the market, to supply products, if now there is a small startup working and he doesn't know, as the guys will say, what he should even be aiming its product to, that could be something really, influential to do the roadmap and to the investment that they are doing. So I think the regulators also should bear in mind that there are companies that are trying to make their first move, and they are relying on what's now. They do need the information. While for companies like Playtech, it's pretty straightforward to adjust.
And I mean, the UK, as you have said, is only one of many jurisdictions that you all operate, and Gibraltar, of course, is another, and it would be remiss of me not to focus in on Gibraltar. We've long considered ourselves a leading jurisdiction, I think, for gaming businesses, whether that's operators, suppliers, affiliates. But with the way the market is changing and how rapidly market conditions are changing, all of the jurisdictions are having to adapt very quickly. And that includes not only reviewing their own requirements, I would suggest, but also helping their licensees and businesses within their borders to navigate what are becoming fairly choppy waters. And those choppy waters were very much in evidence last week, weren't they, with the FATF announcement of the grey listing. And of course, we heard the Minister and Andrew comment on that at length this morning. But Shay, as you're someone who has chosen to base themselves in Gibraltar and is now choosing to make a very significant business decision about Gibraltar, perhaps you could tell us why that is, and I think everyone in the room would probably like to hear from the horse's mouth, as it were, about your plans for DAZN.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Micky. And maybe I say a few words about DAZN, because I'm not sure how many people in the gaming industry understand the company. So DAZN is a media business in the space of sport. It's a big business. I mean, aiming to close this year in $2.5 billion revenues and pretty much double it over the next few years, aiming for $3.5 billion next year. It's going very fast. Big sport streaming platform. We're probably a massive brand in countries like Italy, Spain, Japan, Germany, and a few other markets as well. Buying premium rights and streaming them, similar to what companies like Netflix doing on sports. And one of the opportunity we have in DAZN is to transition the business, which we are doing it now, from a streaming business to a sport entertainment platform. And this is pretty much the excitement roadmap about it, which is also fit to what we just discussed before, about where gaming as a specific going as a market. I mean, again, if you look where gaming been in the last, 15, 20 years, and transition it went through, then clearly it's becoming much more recreational, mass market. We're talking about regulation, and we're talking about player protection regulation, which I'm clearly very, very supportive of that, and it's only going one direction. And I think it's very good for the industry. I mean, again, think where we've been as an industry together probably 15 or 20 years ago, very focused on high-value customers, and this is pretty much shift to mass market, recreational, high protection, regulated, and again, I will repeat it, it's going one direction, and I think it's good. It's good for the industry, making it much more sustainable, much more fair, and I think, and one of the things that I was doing before I left Entain as well is to try to work more closely with the regulator and try to be even more supportive of this process. Even if we might lose some revenues on the short term, I believe that it's long term, it's much better for everybody actually to become a much more sustainable long-term business. And with DAZN, the opportunity is, again, it's quite interesting as well, because removing frictions from customers to be able to watch their favorite sport, to socialize with their friends, to bet, and to do everything else through a single platform, I think this is a quite exciting journey. And earlier this year, I think that's a month ago, we announced that DAZN is also going into betting with the launch of DAZN Bet, which will be a service that we'll be launching, and we chose Gibraltar as the hub for that. Clearly, being personally based in Gibraltar for the last 6 years, this jurisdiction has been amazing, both in terms of the government support in the infrastructure, ability to set up yourself here. I think also very respected, clearly very respected in terms of regulatory, the talent that we find here again. So it was a very trivial decision for us to set up the DAZN Bet in Gibraltar, which we are now set up an office, recruiting 200 people here, and hopefully we'll launch the DAZN Bet before the new football season.
Thanks so much, Shay. I think that should ensure you a very warm welcome on the Minister's table at dinner tonight, so thank you for that. Vaughan, you were on the M&A panel this morning for obvious reasons, and as the industry continues to grow, we've seen a real wave of M&A activity crash over the sector. You've had a number of occasions over the years where you've been due to appear at KPMG e-gaming summits and had a deal land or something very significant happen in a deal just the day before. So you're no stranger to these. But With no sign of mega deals slowing down, could now be the right time for smaller operators to push mergers and acquisitions. So with that in mind, what makes for an attractive acquisition target? What can businesses do to put themselves in the running for a potential acquisition or takeover?
Yeah, thanks, Micky. Yeah, it's a great question. I think that Ivor's session this morning, he talked about the sort of evolution of the industry and the growth of these sort of mega cap businesses, comparisons with other industries like hotels and aggregators for hotels, and how the value chain is being driven towards those really large-scale operators, distributors, providers that have those scale benefits and have the capability to distribute those globally. Generally through unique distribution channels. I think we're not seeing any slowdown in this trend of mega transactions. We've been through multiple waves of M&A getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We're closing a £2 billion transaction next week. That kind of seems relatively small in the modern world. Just before Christmas, Flutter announced a 2 billion transaction and didn't even have an investor call to explain it. They're just, it's kind of like a bolt-on for them now. And, a few weeks ago, MGM announced the Leo Vegas deal for 600 million and called it bite size. So we're definitely into, a new phase of the industry where these huge businesses have been created, huge value has been created, and that is starting to really drive that M&A cycle. At the sort of more medium and smaller end, we're still seeing a lot of activity, and I think in terms of your question is where sort of operators can focus, where businesses can focus. I think if we think about what drives the value, and there've been a whole number of transactions recently and just in the last few weeks, right, like Entain and BetCity and Evolution buying No Limits and so on. These all typically have one or more characteristics that they share. So unique products and content that you just can't get elsewhere, that you can't create quickly enough. Unique access to markets, whether that's licensing and a difficult license to get, or a unique position within that brand, within that market. A really strong local brand, strong loyal customer base, access to omni-channel, potentially access to unique customers through media convergence and streaming and so on. So those type of unique attributes that drive outsized value, I think, are where the real kind of focus of future M&A will be. In terms of how I think the question was how to think about that for kind of operators. I guess I'd say any sort of smaller businesses with those type of characteristics where you've got great growth and unique assets and capabilities, come and speak to me directly first. Don't go to brokers. But I think if you think ahead, a couple of years, plan ahead as to what the business can really look like to have those unique characteristics. What are the KPIs that you need to show? What do you need to demonstrate to really prove that those unique characteristics and that value, and kind of work backwards from there? That's how I'd kind of think about it.
And building on that point, I guess if the pace of M&A continues or perhaps even increases, which seems quite possible, many observers feel that the market's going to become increasingly concentrated, with that being picked up by the UK regulator at the recent WMF conference. So they talked about the Big Four, and they didn't mean the accountancy firms. The Big Four now accounting for over 50% of UK market share. So for those companies, that will allow them to leverage the advantages of scale when it comes to technologies and talent and market access. But I think what we'd like to think about as a panel is whether that will change the makeup of the market, and in particular, how it might impact consumer choice. So, Edo, if I could perhaps come to you with this, what impact could this level of concentration have on the market? And would it ultimately benefit the player, or will it impact choice and lead to an industry that no longer has to push for innovation or keep improving the player experience?
Sure. First of all, I'm going to answer my opinion, although I represent Playtech, and maybe it will not be exactly the same as we do, but I manage the live business, and it's there are parallel items to what Shay is doing and what my other colleagues are doing, and we are entertainment. And the future of entertainment, cannot be controlled by, big companies, and will not be controlled. We see today the biggest entertainers in the world are people that pick up the camera and streamed in YouTube and gathered, tens of millions of followers. And they become actually the big forces in entertainment. So I think that, buying, the operations and buying companies and different reasons, and as were mentioned here, and I fully agree with that, that's the reason for companies to do that. Whether it will block others from getting into the game, the entertainment game, whether they will, will be able to participate in the competition, I think that's not going to change the picture. Yes, we see fields like, the soft drinks market, for example. Definitely we see the consolidation and we see one favorite drink, but there are others. But I think the quality of entertainment and the nature of entertainment is so fluid. Now we are enjoying seeing one thing. In 5 years, we will see something completely different. We will consume it differently. We will want to see, we will be interested in different things. And I think that once you deal with video and content, you really pay attention to those things. And when we look at the market and what's in front of us, obviously, we see our immediate suspects in terms of competition, but we look what's going on in the more, sidelines, what's going on in content creation, in places that do that just from understanding what people wanna see. And definitely the consolidation, blocks the immediate, let's say, entry for companies, but I don't think it will impact, the variety and the versatility of the product that we are offering, or generally that is offered on the market. And I think the first one that will think like that will be on his way down immediately.
If I may add, I think that clearly the consolidation will continue. I mean, as this industry is getting more and more mature, you look like markets like the UK, who is very mature now. It probably will be almost a kamikaze strategy for anybody to try to enter to the UK market as a new operator. So given the fact that it's so competitive and the barrier to entry are so high in terms of regulation and what you need to do and the cost of customers, etc. So you don't see much new entries, and then you see consolidation because everybody trying to enjoy from some cost synergies on technology and on marketing, on everything else, like the recent 888 William Hill potential merger and others as well, like we did a lot in N10 with Ladbrokes and Qual, etc. So it will continue one way. I don't think it will pay. I mean, clearly you have other markets who are not as mature as the UK, like the US, where you still have a lot of variety of different small brands coming, trying. It's very obvious, I think, that this will go to the same cycle as well, and all consolidate into probably 3, 4, 5 brands in the US at some point, like the DraftKings, the BetMGM, the FanDuel, etc., and maybe 1 or 2 more. And it's a natural thing, right? As the market is growing, very easy to go and take a small piece. When it's starting to grow slower, then you're starting to look on consolidation, on cost. The other cycle, which I think Edo referred, and I totally agree, is that there might be consolidation between industries, right? And this is, I think, where new experience is coming in. I mean, suddenly betting or gaming, which might sound very unethical probably a few years ago, I think even companies like Amazon and others at some point will start looking into it. Not sure they will do betting, but let's say it's not something which is becoming currently, I mean, I think the US changed a lot of this perception as well. It's been seen very different in Europe versus the US, but I know that, again, ESPN as an example, Disney, they said a few times that they will be looking into doing something into betting, again, company like Disney looking into it. So you do see where it's going probably the next 5-10 years, where there'll be some level of other consolidations as well. I mean, MGM is a good example as well, right? I mean,
and I think, Shay and his company and DAZN, is representing exactly that. So they emerged, I think, 2018, 2017. ESPN was very established, Sky Sports, other sport providers, streamers. And again, you just start to understand that people want to, acquire the services, acquire the entertainment, the pastime activities. Eventually, we are a pastime activity, and we should look at ourselves as that. It's profitable enough not to aim to be a gambling activity, but a pastime to give value for the players. So I think that the array of services and the array of ways to serve those services is going to continue, develop itself, and we will not, find ourselves at a place that, like Coca-Cola, maybe find itself, that's it, you guys need to drink, so nobody else is going to serve it to you in a different manner. So I think we are still at the very, very early days. And again, from where I'm sitting, managing a big live company, video is now only, although we all here know live casino is big, but video and video consumption and video entertainment and participating in a video experience from home is something which is still in its very, very early days.
Yeah, and I mean, the M&A has been such a big focus of our discussions across the day today, but the other big focus today, and in common with the wider business world, is recognising the importance of ESG. And several in the sector and some on this panel have already taken strides along the journey to a more sustainable, responsible and resilient organisation. But I'd really like to hear from any of you, but I'll start with you, if I may, Joe, about where Betfred are on that journey and what you see as the key ESG risks, opportunities, KPIs, whatever you fancy for the sector.
Okay, not the easiest question. We're a family-owned and we're a family-run company up until I was appointed. So, we had a joint chairman-CEO role, which we've recently separated. So corporate governance we've been on a journey for a long time, and we continue that journey and constantly evolving. For us, player safety and customer centricity are key values. And I think customer centricity, they can be easy terms, but going back to the presentation before ours, this clear language, etc. It's too easy in our sector to get caught up in the compliance language and emails written by compliance departments to customers or FAQs on a website that might mean something to one person in our organisation but are meaningless to anyone else. So player protection is, we do not want problem gamblers. I think we're doing really well as an industry. We welcome the white paper, we'll work and support that. But I think we're doing okay on our own. We're evolving, we're challenging everything that we do continually, and we always will, and we need to be able to evolve. And the white paper shouldn't be too prescriptive because this industry is changing by the day. There are new challenges, and we need to be able to adapt and empower ourselves to do that. And at a corporate governance level, ensure that we challenge every element of the business.
I can add, yeah. I mean, I think one thing became very clear in the world, and again, I look into one of the last things I was doing before I left Entain, is that we launched two narratives in the business. One is sustainability and second is growth. And I think it became very clear in the world in the last, many years, probably a few years mostly, that it's not enough today to run businesses with the core objective just to make money and to increase your EBITDA. So it's about how can you do a better good also in terms of making a sustainable long-term business that is good with communities, good with clearly with customers, etc. And I think from that perspective, we made a switch from just thinking how do you maximize your EBITDA this year, next year, that quarter, next quarter, to how do we run actually maximizing our EBITDA for the next 10 years. And if you start thinking about are we making a business which is sustainable for the next 10, 15 years, then some decision that you think make sense for short term might not make sense for long term. And the people you employ, the products you launch, the quality, inclusion, all of the other things which around, and it all makes sense. And I think this is where a lot of companies started to be focusing on a lot of that. And again, it's the right thing to do. And this is clearly what we're doing also now in DAZN. And I see many other companies doing it in the industry.
Yeah, Vaughan, you might want to.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with those comments. I think we've seen just a dramatic change over the last 5 years in terms of focus on sustainability, and that shift from short-term profit focus to really what are we actually doing as a business? How are we creating a business that is fit for 10, 15, 20 years time? And all of the stakeholders that go behind that, environment, regulator, people. So we've got a kind of three-part strategy. I'm not saying this is exactly the right one, and we've got a lot of work to do on this, but it's player safety is critical. People, diversity, inclusion, growth, development, support, increasingly flexibility, and I think there was a big change on the people one during lockdowns, and then the environment. And we've just been through a gambling commission review process and had a sanction, and people across our business were really shocked and disappointed by that, and I think it was a real wake-up call really for us as a business, that the people that we need to build this business, to grow the business, to innovate, they want to see, real focus on safer gambling. They want to have, clarity around diversity and inclusion policies, and how do we get more diverse. And they increasingly want to see those environmental policies. So as we think about, how do we build a great business, and how do we build for the long-term future? Those ESG elements, which a few years ago would have been, I think, still seen as quite soft and, potentially more just, we kind of have to do this for shareholders, or we have to do it for regulators. Now they really are critical elements for building a business, I think.
And we've talked quite a bit today about the challenges for operators in the UK market, but the industry is thriving largely by looking into new markets, and in particular North America's obviously been very much the focus, but progress is really being made in Latin America, in Africa, Asia and Europe, and obviously that presents some fantastic opportunities, but also some challenges with operators and suppliers having to meet tons of different regulatory requirements in different markets. I think it's also raising questions about how countries regulate online gambling. Is state by state and province by province really the most effective approach? And whether that's the case or not, operators and suppliers with global ambition are now having to prioritize compliance if they want to expand internationally. So I'll maybe come to Vaughan first, but I think others will have comments on this about how challenging it is for you as operators and suppliers to be truly global. What does it take to do deals in and be compliant with regulations in different markets around the world? And do you perhaps see a time when there's more harmony in regulation?
More harmony in regulation. I think if you asked, all the operators and suppliers, if you could wave a magic wand and have harmonised sets of rules, regulations, tax rules, and so on, that would be the absolute dream scenario. It would enable us to focus really on product innovation, product development, player protection, create much better products for consumers, and not spend that time tailoring the platform in each jurisdiction for the different tax reports. It'd be a total nightmare for a lot of people in this room who are lawyers, though. So it's not a win for everyone. But I think, look, we're one of the sort of few operators, I suppose, that has a really global, scalable platform that can operate in multiple jurisdictions, and then we have to tailor that to each of those jurisdictions. So if we look at the US states, that investment that you require to meet generally the local tax and disclosure regulations in each state, and then some infrastructure, that creates that sucks up a lot of time. It diverts a lot of attention from those other areas that could be much more productive in terms of making great products and really looking after players. So I think the regulations, in my view, will probably never be harmonised because there are too many embedded incumbent interests that stop that. But the more that we can move towards standardised approaches, particularly in the areas of player protection, I think that's better for all stakeholders.
I think the US was mentioned here a couple of times in that perspective, and I think it's a good example. Because there the regulation is not only about player protection, it's much wider, and that separation between the federal laws and the state laws and what's allowed and how you need to handle those. They have quite a lot of things that you need to understand and comply with. And first of all, in terms of the compliance teams, and you mentioned the people and that are doing that, I think definitely they needed to up their game. I think that every company that wants to go into those new regulations need, first of all, to have a good structure of compliance and professional compliance people that really are not just to scare you, but are there to direct you how to do your product correctly, not to push the boundaries, but still to do it in a smart manner that really allows you to create a business out of it. On the other side, if I take the US, specifically in live, we, for example, need to create a studio in each state that we go to because of some Wire Act from 1961. When we started the journey of building the studios, I was like, I cannot believe that they make us do that. Why they don't allow us just to build one big studio? That would be amazing. Now that we've finished, I say, keep it on. That's a good entry barrier for my competition. So I don't know to say if it's good or bad for business. It depends on what stage of the business you are at, but definitely you need to embrace that. The more that you embrace the regulation, understand it, understand the meaning behind of it, even if it's wrong. Because for me, for example, in the live business, to do a studio in the state which I'm catering the services to, that's not optimal. You know, that brings risks like collusion, which the market is not mature enough even to understand. And you know, those risks we need eventually to invest more to cope with. But I think that once you understand the playground and you really cater to that culture, and I think in most regulations that I've seen, you know, whether it's in Spain when they are allowed only roulette for live, or the barriers to enter a land-based casino in Spain, or you know, other places that have specific regulations to the culture which it serves. And I think we as an international company or any company that goes to work in those markets, we know the market, we have experts, we have advisors, we have some people from that country we visited, but to really know the culture and what serves its right, or the economical situation or other considerations there, I think it's very difficult to see from a place of a business that is coming to make a return on its investment in that market.
And Shay, you talked obviously about the evolution of the sector towards broader media, and Andrew Rose also recently noted that the UK Gambling Commission is intently watching that evolution. And I guess from his point of view, whilst at face value, this could well be a positive. You know, it creates business models that are centred on recreational play, but it also potentially introduces new concerns, so the gamification of media products. So how should the sector navigate that challenge, Shay?
I don't think it's I mean, clearly we can understand the potential risk of putting a product which consumer can spend more time and more money on a broader audiences. It clearly needs to be done in a clear, responsible way. But I do want to see the positive side of that, and to see basically where consumer trends, which I think we mentioned it before, where it's going. I mean, right? I mean, if you think about your experience as children watching sport with your parents, is probably some kind of a ceremony that 1 hour before the big game of Champions League, you took the popcorn, everybody's ready, putting in the channel, and it was a 5 hours production in the family that everybody watching. So
touch the antenna, yeah, don't move anything.
Yeah, exactly. And today, young generation are not like that, right? They're coming, they watch it for 15 minutes while they're on TikTok, on WhatsApp with their friends, so you cannot get the attention. So clearly, the whole entertainment and the time consumptions needs to change. The way we consume sport, it needs to be more fun, more interactive. I'm not saying that betting is the answer for that. I'm not saying that, but I think it's part of it. I mean, and this is exactly what we're planning to do in the zone. I mean, to add more interactive experience as part of watching, and these are things like adding social interaction, games for fun, watch parties with your friends, chat while you watch. Not necessarily watch it with your the classic commentary that coming, but putting some influencer who is very cool, who is someone who's doing rap, or with basically or a famous boxer, or giving the commentary, or your friends can be the commentator as well, and also play some casual bet as well. I mean, you watch your favorite team and you say, I want to pay €5 to watch, and clearly it needs to be done within the regulation. And all of the things that have been discussed today around best practices, And I think it's overall to be great. It will be great for the consumers to remove friction. It can be also great, by the way, for the sport itself, right? Because one of the things that the sport, I mean, the athletes and the leagues are suffering as well is also from decline in some places in terms of a younger generation watching, and then it will eat budget, and then again closing teams, etc. So hopefully, ideally, we think that companies like DAZN is doing is to try to, again, inject some of this energy back to the core business of sport, and creating to both existing generation who want to watch more lean-back experience, on the younger generation wants to have more interactive experience, this bridge of new experiences.
And could we be in danger with all of our talk of evolution of the sector, of kind of losing sight of the high street punter? Because there was a lot of debate, particularly during lockdown, that people who traditionally would have gone to betting shops in person would go online and would never come back. Any truth in that rumour, Joe? Or is retail alive and kicking?
During COVID, it was a real fear, you know. It was our worst nightmare. The shops closed, and our online business shot through to the stars. It was fantastic, but High Street has fully recovered.
Right.
So we're really pleased with how the High Street is performing. Customers enjoy the betting shop experience. They enjoy the social element. Long may that continue.
I mean, if I add something on that, I mean, running the 3,000 shops in the UK, I mean, clearly this is, this industry exists, right? So it's not like there is a very captive audience who used to go to the betting shops in the UK and in other markets as well. But, I mean, you cannot ignore the fact that this is more of the past rather than the future, right? I mean, you wouldn't see new betting shops coming in. You probably see more of them closing and consolidating. I do think there's an opportunity, which I know that some of the operators are doing it as well, to try to reinvent the betting shop experience as well, more like self-service, which I know it's something which is going as well, and transitioning them to more entertainment centers. I mean, there is something there, but clearly this is not on the increase, right? This is, I mean, the experiences are moving more and more to digital, and I think creating something which is some synergetic between retail and online, it's actually probably the best formula here.
Yeah, I agree and disagree. I agree there won't be new shops coming, but at the turnover level, the customers are returning and they want to come to the shops. Thankfully, our digital business has normalised, but we're still in a much stronger position than we were pre-COVID. So, yeah, I do think there is a place for High Street. Yes, I agree, SSBTs. Yes, I believe in omnichannel. But customers want to come in the physical environment. And we're seeing that in other territories as well. In our US business, our retail performance is strong in the casinos where we've got partnerships in the states that we're in. And in our South African business, we've got significant retail there. It's a very different retail offer. It's a much bigger footprint with 30 to 40 tills in a shop. Very, very different. Levels of income, obviously, a lot lower in the areas that we're operating in the retail environment. But yeah, there is a place for retail. I accept all your points around digital, but retail will survive.
I think, generally as an industry, we don't do a great job of kind of standing up and promoting the value of the products that we're selling. Retail's back to where it was pretty much because people love it. They go to the shops because it's a fun thing to do. They do it every week. They see their friend. They're generally friends with the people behind the counter. They provide a great experience. They're providing value and service. And I think it's similar with the convergence of media and online. If this is providing a valuable cross-sell, upsell service, whatever we call it, and providing something of value to those consumers, then that's great. There's no exploitation. There's no harm with that. I kind of think of it as like any other cross-sell or upsell product, right? I'm sure there are a few people in here who enjoyed the minibar last night. You know, you're not going to do that every night, and you're not going to empty the minibar every night, and there is risk of harm with that. And you know, when you go and fill up your car, you might buy a chocolate bar, and you're not going to do that every time. But you know, done responsibly in measure, providing an extra layer of enjoyment and engagement with the sport, with the game, with in sort of day-to-day life down at the betting shop. I think we should all be quite proud of those services that we provide and that entertainment. And certainly for me, betting and gaming provides a huge amount of entertainment and enjoyment for my kind of day-to-day life. So I think it's betting shops are back. They never really went away. They were just closed because they had to be for COVID. But they're a really cool part of the industry and a really cool part of people's day-to-day lives.
I think I'll choose a middle ground here because the retail is back, and I think people are also enjoying really going there because it was away for a long time. And I think I agree really much with also what Shay said, that reinventing them is an important thing. And let's move away from our industry. Let's go to the circus industry, for example. People loved going to circus. It slowly went down. Then came Cirque du Soleil. They reinvented completely the experience of going, again, to a circus. It's just in a hotel or in some kind of a different show. It's not in a tent. And again, you would pay even more to go to that same experience, seeing people jump around. So I think that, the retail, a bit more than jumping around, I agree. But I think that the retail offering, and I did see a lot of new shops being renovated and offering, self-service or other experiences that will drive the traffic or the people into the retail on top of the online experience, which will, let's face it, will only get bigger because we will get to much more platforms, we'll get to much more, make the players have fun. And retail will need to up its game than just be there on Main Street.
Yeah. But then digitally, we all need to up our game and constantly evolve. It's no different. If
True.
we all stand still, we're yesterday's news.
I think, I'm also being asked a lot about, are you, live casino is cannibalizing land-based? And I'm always saying, no. First of all, we are extension of the business, same thing as, and second of all, can we really replace the experience of going on a night in the casino? To some extent, yes, but I think for the most of it, no. I think it's still fun. For me as a player, I would, enjoy playing online, but I would enjoy also going to the casino in the right environment. And I think it's a mixture of them both. And I think that the wallet that the player diverts to our services, whether they are retail, online, or wherever we stream them or we provide them, will get bigger because, again, we all go back to the experience of the players rather than being focused of, leave here your dollar, we want to take it.
Now, it would be selfish of me to keep these four to myself. So whilst I go to my final question, I would ask, if you have a question for the panel, could you raise your hands? Because then the team at the back will get a microphone over to you in readiness for you to ask that question as soon as I've asked this one. And it will be no surprise to any of you what my last question is based on what the topic is. So over the past couple of years, the industry has made, no doubt, fantastic progress when it comes to diversity and inclusion. And we heard from Jo in the panel earlier about the great experience she's had as a woman within the gaming industry. That may well have more to owe to Fred than it does to the industry as a whole, but nevertheless. Some would argue that this progress is long overdue, but with momentum, is really behind those efforts to ensure equality, not just for gender, but right across the board. So, Edo, perhaps if I come to you first, how has Playtech approached equality, and are there any particular initiatives that you think are good to share with your fellow operators?
Yeah, absolutely. As a big public UK listed company, we're of course engaging in a lot of official activities, in a lot of projects that bring about the inclusion and diversity and equal opportunities, and those are very official and very ongoing, and we all the time invest and make sure that we apply them. I'll again, I'll represent Playtech Live, which we are a bit more than a half of all of Playtech employees. We have a clear majority of women working in Playtech Live, and I'm not referring only to the dealers. I'm referring to all levels of management, all the way to the top. We just opened actually a studio in Peru last week, and the Playtech Lima CEO is a girl named Sandra, which started as a dealer and climbed up, and now she's a CEO. And her COO is a woman over there, and it's like that, I think, all across Playtech Live organization. And sometimes people ask me, how did you achieve it inside Playtech? And I always say, we have a great program, but reality is, we literally apply an equal opportunity thought and approach, and I think that we learned that, you know, that the abilities are equal in our field of work. And we don't need to emphasize to recruit especially a women or men or any other gender. We let it happen according to the talents, and we insist on letting the talents decide. The result is that we have majority of women working for us in the management sector, and I didn't aim there. I can be popular in saying that we have great programs, and we do in the wider Playtech, but in Playtech Live, we are really focused on the quality of the people, in the eagerness to work. It's very hard working in Live. It's 24/7. You know, you always need to be somehow connected to the business. There are no like days that you leave it to the machine in all management positions that we have, and just that's the reality eventually that we got to. I think that in general, you know, you should bear in mind that different sectors, you know, have different requirements. So, you know, maybe in the wider Playtech, it's not like that, and I'm not saying it's not, but I'm not familiar with the exact numbers. But with us, it's definitely, whether it's because we have more female dealers starting with us because they are more eager to stand on a stage and be in front of a camera. Maybe I never checked it scientifically, and then they just continue working with us and going up the ladder. We definitely do not recruit from the outside people that have no live experience on top of our own team. So that's something that we definitely make an emphasis for.
Maybe an example of something that we recently done in the zone, which I think is very important. We launched a big campaign, which is called More Eyes, which the zone exclusively broadcast the Women Champion League across the world. And we spend a lot of marketing money to promote women football, which as good as men football, but didn't have the right stage of the round exposure for people around the world to watch it. And this is, again, not done in a way of, you know, ticking a box and trying to hit some kind of, you know, women equality. It's done with a sincere intention that there is a really good asset here on a rise, women football, which is growing, and you just need to get the right chance to go to everybody's home to watch it. And we managed to get 50 million people around the world watch the final of the Women Champion League, which held only a month ago in Turin. And we will continue doing it for the next 4 years with UEFA. So it's a great opportunity, and it's done both in terms of equality, but also from a business perspective as well. So I think this is always the best thing to achieve.
That diversity in sport piece is very close to my heart. I recently became Vice President of the Isle of Man Commonwealth Games Association. And the big thing that attracted me to take that on, because it's not like I haven't got enough to do, right, was that they talked about what the Commonwealth Games Federation is doing to promote diversity in sport. For every 2 men that you send to compete in a particular discipline at the Commonwealth Games, there has to be 1 woman. Vice versa as well. For every 2 women, there has to be 1 man. But they're really doing a lot for all the countries in the Commonwealth to make sure that women are getting the opportunity to compete on that stage. And I think that's just wonderful to see. Sorry,
No, just to reiterate what the two were saying here, really. I guess, you know, talent doesn't have a gender or a look or a style. You know, our approach is to ensure we're as open and diverse and inclusive as possible so that people can be themselves at work. They can be as relaxed as possible, focus their energies on productivity, engagement, enjoying themselves at work, hopefully, and that growth and development. I love the way Edo was talking about, that plan and the talent. We know as an industry we've got a lot of work to do though, so we've sort of trying to force progress a bit more and have set a target that at least 50% of promotions will be female in our business. I think it's a starting point. We've got more to do on that, but really what drives it in my view is the leadership and the culture from the top, and I think the way Shay and Edo were talking about that is spot on, I think.
I'm slightly against percentages and quotas, personally. I just think people should, the right person for the right job. I think Betfred have been very successful at that. We have significant female leaders in the business. We've just completed an acquisition of the largest gaming company in South Africa. And it's interesting there, the management team out of 5 is 4 females. It's great being in the room. I actually feel sorry for the guy. But the passion, and so for us it comes naturally, and linking a bit to sponsorship. We've been sponsoring rugby league for a long time now. We're really proud to do that, and as part of that sponsorship, we were adamant it had to be the female and disabled rugby league as well. It just, why would it not be? Core to our values.
Thank you all. And Ivor, sorry, I've kept you waiting for a long time, but please go for your question now. Oh, sorry, not Ivor. Come on, go.
Hello, I'd like to ask the panel what they think the relationship will be between online gaming and cryptocurrency in the next 5 years. That's generally, specifically with regards to recent events, affordability.
I don't mind taking it first. First of all, the link exists very strongly already now. I think a lot of sites, a lot of people are playing with crypto. I'll share my personal opinion, not Playtech's opinion. I'm not sure if it's, we will need to see what happens with the crypto market as a whole. I think what we saw since, the decline started is that people are maybe betting on it a bit more, throwing their crypto into gaming. I never like to see people throwing stuff into gambling, but I do feel that we're seeing an uptick in the use of that, and a bit lightheaded use even. So I think it will be more and more and more used. I think, NFTs are clearly an extension of prizes and of things that can be used within games, if you talk about game creation. But it needs to be done in a very, again, let's go back to the beginning, in a very regulatory manner, in a very constructive way of the extreme exchange rates that are affecting, and we need to see that everything is being used correctly. There are a lot of sites and a lot of operations that are just a bit wild west these days with that, which I think is not good for the players, not good for the sites, and not good for the industry. Nevertheless, it's a genuine form of exchange, and we must adapt to include it in a better way.
If I can add, clearly, first, I personally a big fan of blockchain and crypto. I think what Gibraltar as a government done here is great, by the way, with all of the regulation and being advanced and making Gibraltar as a hub for blockchain and crypto companies. For me, cryptocurrency is just another currency, right? And clearly, if the regulation fits, then it needs to treat. Clearly, the problem with probably that Edo alluded in terms of crypto is that it's probably easier to transfer cryptocurrencies, between accounts and currency. Again, this is the whole idea, actually, of the whole blockchain, without a middleman, which creates some challenges on the finance system. But on the gaming system, I don't think it should create. If you apply the regulation of AML, source of funds, KYC, etc., then I don't see a difference between someone depositing one Bitcoin or $1, right? We should apply pretty much the same regulation if we apply the regulation. So this is one. The second thing you might ask, what is blockchain means for the industry? I don't think it will. There's been some attempts to become some kind of decentralized RNG casinos. I think there are a few companies try to do it. I'm not sure there is really a need for this. But there might be some application which we don't see now. NFT is another good example. I mean, actually in DAZN we just launched our own NFT marketplace. It is interesting thing which I think will get settled at some point. Clearly, what NBA did was astonishing with NBA Top Shots, and I think a lot of companies trying to do the similar thing like ourselves as well. But I mean, there might be, or there will be some further links, I assume, between this technology of blockchain and many industries like gaming, and I don't think it's very clear now exactly how.
Thank you. Ivor Jones, to you.
We haven't talked about diversity in relation to customers. Women participating at the same level as men is the perpetual untapped growth opportunity. Is it structural? Is there anything you do to fix it?
Anyone want to take that one?
I mean,
I think it's if to answer from a provider perspective, if you definitely, when you make a game, when we create games, we look at who's potentially to love them, and we are trying to cater for all tastes. Whether they are gender related or other taste related, and definitely when you go around the world and you have cultures and games that specifically played in specific places, and when you do a game you need to make sure that you know what you're making, what's the end result, what's the experience, and who are the players that might play that. Of course it might go bigger, it might get smaller. When you have a hit game, then it definitely caters, it ticks all the boxes, and it caters for most audiences, and those are the big games that we see around. But in terms of inclusion of women or female or any gender that is not male, in terms of players, I don't think it's a question of gender. I think it's a question of what do you enjoy, what do you like, what's interesting for you, and I think that's cross gender completely.
I mean, clearly it's been in the past a lot of attempts to create, Triple Eight ladies, if I'm not mistaken, right? To try to put the brand, the marketing around more, female audiences. Bingo, clearly, probably everybody knows, is a very, most of the audience are women as well. So I think that there are a lot of efforts. Clearly, I think, again, remember my time from Entain as well, we understood that there is, again, you see it more as an upside, as a potential to increase your market share around women. So we try to do some more marketing campaigns, and something that businesses do.
I think if I can add, still 2 more minutes. I think the rise of the game shows, specifically live, is definitely something that creates a more suitable, let's say, usability for women. We see a lot of women playing that, but I definitely see a lot of women playing roulette or baccarat. I don't think that there is any barrier for any gender to enjoy any other games. I agree with Shay. Bingo, definitely, much more women would play. We look at the US, we know that the daytime game shows there, and it's, there is this notion that, a lot of women are at home during the day and are watching those TV game shows. Definitely, it exists if you want to look at the US as a market, and definitely we want to tap into that availability. But again, I think that it's, and I remember the days of the 888 ladies as well, and I don't think that now any of us would go in that direction. Shay had the Serrano fight, right? It was on DAZN, right? So that was like a sold out fight in Madison Square Garden, and I watched it just because I want to watch the great fight, and I think it really goes beyond that gender content. I enjoy seeing romantic comedies on my free time, so I don't know if that's considered like a film that is aimed at female audience, but
Yeah, absolutely. There are no there's nothing worse than stereotypes, right? So just Thank you very much to my panel. I have to say, it was fantastic doing this last year virtually, but there is nothing like being back in person. And for the panel, I think, the chance to interact with each other and an audience and be back in the room together. And of course, now we have drinks. But before drinks, we have our global head of leisure and hospitality who will close the summit for us. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.